Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and we're here today with some more Star Citizen. Today we're going to be talking about controller inputs, whether that be mouse and keyboard, gamepad, or HOTAS or joystick, whatever you are using to play Star Citizen with. Actually, mostly today we're going to be talking about the choice of the gamepad. Now recently I made the jump back to the Xbox One controller, my Xbox One controller running to my computer with a USB cable, and that's what I've been playing SC with over the last couple days. I've been sort of relearning, messing around with key bindings, getting really comfortable in trying to make the ultimate Xbox One controller key mapping setup, key binding setup for Star Citizen, for Arena Commander specifically. Now the reason for this is, I know I just did that big long speech back in my 1 week at war video about how I was getting comfortable with the X52, and I kind of was, but I still just found myself struggling unnecessarily whenever I got out of anything other than the Hornet. Whenever I got into the Gladius, especially, back into the Avenger, it was still just all a nightmare. I could see myself using the X52 in non-combat situations in the future for Star Citizen. It's a very great control device when you talk about smooth, precise movements. However, when you start talking about rapid precision targeting, using a lot of yaw to make fine adjustments to your aiming path, it's just no good. It really isn't. Even if I had a pair of rudder pedals for the yaw rather than the twist on my joystick, I still just don't think it would work out. Hell, I even tried mapping my yaw to the mini joystick on my HOTAS on my throttle. It still just was no good. The precision just wasn't there. I was just so much unnecessary frustration and struggling was preventing me from actually enjoying the game and developing, any sort of skills in terms of flying the ships in SC. So I said, I'm done with this. Let's give the Xbox One gamepad another try. And as soon as I started flying with the thing, before I even got my key binding set up, I immediately was just like, this weight was lifted off my shoulders, and I was like, why didn't I just come back to this in the first place? I was so dead set on using the X52 because I love that thing. I mean, any game that I can, I make use of it, and I love it in Elite. Obviously in DCS, it's the only way to go. It's like the best gift I've ever gotten. It was a hand-me-down from one of the people at Praxis, Whiplash, and I love the thing to death, man. It's honestly one of the best things that's ever been giving in terms of gaming peripherals. So I'm so, just sort of hard-headed about making sure I use it in anything that it makes sense to use it in. But I had to step away, I had to step back from it, and honestly, the Xbox One controller, for me personally, has just been the best decision I've ever made. I don't like the idea of mouse and keyboard at all. Whatever reason, I do not want to use a mouse and keyboard when playing a flying game. I never liked it for War Thunder, and I don't like it here in SC, and I sure as hell wouldn't be using it in Elite either. I just do not want that. The Xbox One controller, for some reason, I'm just okay with that. Now this discussion isn't really about what's better than what. Some people are probably having no issue at all flying with their HOTAS, and some people love the mouse and keyboard. It's about what am I going to be able to have the most fun playing Star Citizen with? What am I going to feel the most comfortable with? I want to be able to go into the game, even at this stage, and play Arena Commander without having to struggle and fight against my control system, my controller input. That's silly. That's absolutely ridiculous. It's like trying to play a first-person shooter with a right-handed mouse in your left hand and switching up your controls for no reason other than the sake of just forcing yourself to deal with it. It's just an unnecessary struggle that I was sick and absolutely tired with. And that was what made me make the jump to the Xbox One controller. So I want to talk about that because there are some positives and a few negatives that I've sort of started to cope with as I've been using the Xbox One controller. And the footage you're seeing here, it isn't me doing really good, but again, it's me having a hell of a good time. Lots of elongated dogfights, picking my targets, and doing some pretty good flying, I would say. I'd say that there's some exceptional flying in here a little bit later on in the video, especially. Just getting really comfortable with the Hornet, which, I'm sorry, but that's the only thing I am willing to fly when playing PvP in Arena Commander, because that thing's a tank, and if you're not in it, you're losing. It's just, that's all there is to say about it. I'm glad it's a free ship because it just crushes everything else out there right now. I mean, it just runs through the Gladius and the Avenger, not only in ramming and tanking capabilities, because people love to ram with this thing, but seemingly in its armor and its its firepower as well. So that's why I've been flying it. I just get absolutely wrecked in the Gladius and the Avenger. If you can do well in those ships, good on you. I'm jealous, I'll be honest. But Here's what I'm doing with the Xbox One controller. Cool thing is I have track IR, so I'm still able to use my head tracking, which is fantastic. You'll also notice that in this video, I was sort of a little bit too focused on my target, and half the time my helmet's like stuck through the screen. Apologies if that starts to annoy anyone. But what I'm running, the great thing about the Xbox One gamepad is, while there are a lot of key bindings in SC, I actually found it easier to bind just about everything that was important to the Xbox One gamepad, easier even than binding it to my HOTAS, mostly because it was easy to remember where things were on the Xbox One gamepad rather than trying to figure out what button is actually what button on my X52. So some of the setups are multi-button. For example, holding left trigger and clicking in my right stick will actually go ahead and dump my flares. I could also use, I think it's A to go ahead and toggle through my different countermeasures, flares, and the whatever that stuff's called. Can't think of the name of it. Anyways, moving on. The main thing though is what I'm using for movement and aiming. Now my left stick is set up for pitch and roll, and my right stick is set up just for yaw on its own. It makes it sort of a first-person shooter setup, with which, if I'm honest, the ability that just about every ship in SC has to pivot so quickly into, again, use its yaw to really turn the ship around so rapidly, almost makes the core, you know, mechanics of aiming in the game more like an FPS than, like, you know, something like an actual flight game like War Thunder. So I feel that the controller, the dual stick setup, actually works really well for this. And I know there was actually a lot of people, there was specifically a member of Praxis a while back talking about the fact that the traditional HOTAS setup wasn't really good for space games. We need two joysticks, and it's funny because that's basically what I'm doing here with the Xbox One gamepad. But it allowed me to have this whole new level of precision. And as someone who grew up, yes, playing things like Counter-Strike, mouse and keyboard, I also grew up playing a lot of Halo. I'm that guy who played Titanfall on PC with an Xbox One controller and still ran all over everybody's face. I'm just really comfortable with the controller. It's something that I was born with, that I spend a lot of time with. I probably have as many hours as I have playing with the mouse and keyboard in FPS. I probably have 6 times that playing for FPSs on console with the controller. So it's sort of like, you know, it's like a second home to me. I feel very comfortable when I pick up this controller and I can just sort of go to town and do my job with it. So doing the twin stick setup just felt natural. Don't get me wrong, I still have some learning room here and there. I've only gotten into like 3 or 4 matches with the setup that I have currently. Still messing with some of the key bindings, still working on what am I doing with my track IR setup. I think it's really nice to have the track IR mixed in with the controller. It actually just is it's a nice combination. It works really well, and it almost feels more natural to have the controller in my hand and then to be able to use my track IR rather than have the X52 in my track IR. For some reason, there's a weird mental disconnect I have there when using the track IR with things like mouse and keyboard and the X52 that made it hard for me to aim. But I find myself not really having those same issues when I'm using track IR with the Xbox controller. Again, definitely a mental thing, but whatever. It just works a lot better for me, and I'm really excited about that. So that's my big controller change. I'm going to keep playing with the Xbox One controller over the next couple months, and you know, to see how things go. I'm spending some time tweaking. I already have a pretty good sensitivity curve set up for everything. It's just nice to have everything sort of at my fingertips. I don't have to worry about twisting the stick on my joystick and dealing with all these other frustrations. It's all just in my hand, 2 hands, all over, click all the buttons at once if I need to. And like I said with the key binding earlier on, is everything really fits on here really well. I'm actually using systems that I wasn't using with my keyboard and mouse or with my HOTAS setup, like using the shield and the power management. I actually realized that by pressing my option button on my Xbox One controller, I can instantly bring up the ability to shut down and power off any of my weapon systems. So if they're disabled, they're not working, I can stop wasting the power from there. I can shut them off just by clicking the back stick and quickly selecting the menus and then hitting A and selecting. It all actually works very, very quickly. It means that I can spend a very small amount of time doing, you know, making changes to my power levels, and then quickly get back into the combat without having to, you know, go through a bunch of menus or sort of, you know, just throw myself all out of whack. So actually really genuinely excited about this whole setup. And I think moving in the future, the possibility of having only one controller input for everything I do in SC, getting out of my ship, going into first-person combat, if I can make that all happen with the Xbox One controller and be effective, and more importantly, have a good time and enjoy myself and not have to deal with unnecessary frustrations, then boom, that'll be my goal going forward, is just to use this thing and nothing else. Now there's one last small thing I wanted to talk about, and that is one of the little updates that we received regarding you know, sort of the end of March. Their big update for SC. They sort of, you know, they always release this huge list, and they start to talk about what they've been working on, what's going on, and of course the highlight of all of that is the FPS module, which is still not here. However, they have said they're still playing it, they're working on some bugs, they've already introduced another mode that they're hoping to release in the future, sort of like, it almost looks like a variant of Griffball. It's, you know, using the zero-G environments and then having players actually try and score with a ball of sorts while still engaging each other with weapon systems, with the laser pistol and such. So I'm just happy to see that they're still trying to create while they're developing, because I think one of my concerns with SC, with all of the teams, is that they are, you know, they have this really big vision that they're set and working on, and that there won't be time for them to sort of think about the small things. And that just hasn't been the case. They've proved me wrong at every single turn with that. All of the small details that have went in the game, for example, Chris Roberts mentioning how the rifles inside of the FPS module are actually going to use one-point sling systems, just like the military uses, just like Special Forces uses, to hang the rifle down in front of their chest so then they can equip their pistol and start engaging targets. You don't have this nonsense of like shoving your rifle in this mystical backpack slot. That's not how things work in the real world. You either put it down, you hold it in one of your hands, or you use a sling system. How many first-person shooters are out there? None of them have ever done that. So all I have to say, if anyone from CIG or Ilphonic or any of their teams watches this video and they get this far, keep thinking about the small things, guys, because they count. If you guys have any questions about the Xbox One gamepad, about the Xbox controller setup in general, about my thoughts on it, or anything that I said or you saw in this video, as always, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And also feel free to share with me your favorite input of choice right now. What is it? What have you been using? Mouse and keyboard, HOTAS, gamepad? Let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next one.